Hello and welcome back to One for Paul, the show where I, the original non-pop culturist, get inducted into the world of pop culture by friends, comedians, and nemeses. And today, again, my high school drama teacher. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm going to be working on trying to figure out how I can check all the boxes for like the people that are on your show. So
there's so many boxes.
Yeah, but I'm not a quitter, and I feel like if I really apply myself, 2020 and 2021 have taught us pretty much everything is possible. So,
including Nemesis.
Yeah. Well, I'm not that dark. Don't get me wrong, goth for a long time, but not that dark.
Troisième partie, Le Retour. Based on the title, I guess Guy isn't dead.
Yeah.
So, March 1959, he arrives back at Cherbourg, at the train station where no one is waiting for him, poor guy.
Yep.
He's about to have a bad day. See, he's shown up to the umbrella shop, and it's been sold and is under new management. Cut to Aunt Elise, who is still alive. First bit of happy news we've had for a bit. And she tells him what's up, and he is a tad upset.
Yeah, and it's always so interesting for me to figure this out, because clearly she would have quit writing him, right?
Well, evidently she keeps writing him sort of out of politeness or out of fear of disappointing him somehow.
Yeah, but by now, considering how long he's been gone and the fact that she was pregnant from when he left, the child would have been born. There would have been discussions of when you come home, when it's happening, how much did he know coming back? Because it's obviously not like she would have not mentioned the baby.
It's maybe that he could have mentioned, she probably mentioned the baby, but was like, yeah, he's fine. Listen, what she's done is ghosting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. I think there was some writing, and then I think she just kind of he's obviously going to the shop, and what is he expecting? He's obviously got nothing to go on. She's ghosted him, so what's going on,
But ghosted him
for him to get there.
Ghosted him in a way where he does not know to be like, well, wait, where are you going, though? Instead, he's like, oh, this is normal communication, but she seems like she's mad at me for some reason.
Yeah, and all I need to do is show up and we can clear this up,
Exactly.
It's obviously been an awkward year, but she's there, and when I see her, we'll work this out.
Yep, he's also...
there's enough left for him to be hopeful. He doesn't come back resigned that it's over, or he wouldn't have gone to the shop. So, what did she clue him in on before she ghosted?
I don't know.
He didn't even know she left town.
I don't think a lot of those details end up being important to the plot, but it would be...
It'd be interesting for me just for his motivation. What are his expectations that he's going up to?
I think
how
he's
surprised is he
that he's going to come back home to his wife and kid, or his fiancée and kid, and get married immediately. I think that's what he's expecting.
Yeah, whatever has made the thing happen, it's going to be reconcilable and fixable, and they're going to be together.
Yeah, he'll be there. They'll have a conversation. Patch. Whatever's gone wrong, 2 days later, it'll be fine. They'll kiss and make up, and then they'll have a marriage in a month.
He's certainly hopeful when he gets home. Maybe despondent, but hopeful. Uh-huh. So, yeah.
Also, he's got a leg injury, which is, I guess that's what got him discharged. See, they had to choose something that makes him somewhat injured and realistically discharged, but doesn't do anything that costs money to makeup.
Yeah, exactly.
Asking about...
What's going to get him back is exactly, where it's not been a full 2 years, but gets him back in time to make this story even more horrible.
Oh, yeah. Asking about Madeleine... Aunt Elise says, tu sais comme elle est sage, which they translate as, you know how well behaved she is. Here I don't disagree with the translation, but you do lose something, because the word sage means wise, but can also means, exactly the word sage, like a wise person is a sage. But well-behaved is also a thing. Sois sage is something you'll tell to a child to say behave. So it does mean that, but it's got 3 or 4 other meanings in French that are all related. And I'm like, oh no, you can't do it in English suddenly. You don't have a word that does all 4 of those things at once.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. Mostly it's you know how wise she is. Smart she is. And he goes yeah, I know. And just sort of glossed over because... what she said was, she's well-behaved. as in well-mannered. Like, she's a good girl, right?
She's got it together.
You know what? I got a word.
Yeah.
She's a mensch. She's a mensch. She's great.
But you still don't go to English for that. You go to Yiddish.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, but English people will understand what that means, so I'm taking it.
Yeah.
English goes mine now.
Yep. There you go.
English goes it mine now. Also, he's getting the news that he'll likely never see his son. Bummer. Madeleine arrives and is delighted to see him. Can you not see the smolder? And also, their bees here is very familiar, I have to say.
The what?
The bees, the kiss on both cheeks.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking bees.
Bees! Release the bees! Oh, that's a very different movie.
It's also like
just put Nicolas Cage right on in there.
It just but Cards Against Humanity. It's also referenced in Arrested Development. It's a pretty good cultural.
It is
cultural
good, but no, La Bise is like kissing on both cheeks.
Yeah, I don't know that's what it was called. I mean, I knew there was a term for it. I didn't know the French term for it.
Yeah, La Bise.
Besos is what you say in Spanish. They do the same thing. Besos, not pesos. Besos.
Yeah. So, but this one is very familiar. Either that or he thinks her hips are like halfway up her chest. Did you not see this? He completely cops a feel.
He's been away. I don't think I did see that.
That is not the way that you're supposed to do that. So what?
Well, I mean, I have to say, in my experience, that's not anything that happened to me for sure. So I guess
yeah.
Maybe I was distracted by her smolder. I don't know. I totally missed that, but now I'm gonna watch for it.
Yeah, she's super into it anyway because he does it, and he's like, "Oh, okay." That's like her. I imagine her internal monologue as Nigel Thornberry going.
You just made her less sexy, by the way.
Are you kidding me? Name me one thing more sexy than the voice and mannerisms of Nigel Thornberry.
Inside her head?
Yes.
Yeah, it's there's a Venn diagram there.
I disagree heartily with your analysis. That's
fair. The world is a big place, and if you all like the same people, it would be even uglier than it is now.
She continues to smolder super hard. Because that's her main emotional beat, as Guy goes to his bedroom and puts aside the toy gas station and little toy cars he presumably expected to give to his son. When did he buy this? Was it before or after the lady was like, haha, cool, so anyway, yeah, I'm fine later?
Well, maybe he had Amazon, and he had it sent to the house while he was away.
That's true. That's true.
It's the French one.
Almost like home delivery has been a thing for a while. Cut back to the garage later that year in the spring, and Guy's boss isn't super impressed with Guy.
I don't think Guy is super impressed with Guy.
I don't think anybody's super impressed with him right now. Turns out he might have messed up a repair because I guess his heart isn't in his work anymore. In any event, his boss thinks that because he comes into work unshaven and in dirty overalls. Though I have to say, listen, that's what... the guy has some designer stubble. Chill out. Also, he's just now come out of, head straight in the engine. I think it's okay to be a bit greasy.
Yeah. There's a lot of white in that gas station, in that auto shop.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to maintain.
Yeah, you got to pay the kid to wipe it down every night.
Every single night.
Anyway, Guy
that's a Martha Stewart. That's a Martha Stewart auto shop.
Ooh. Because it looks like a prison?
Because Snoop is hanging out in the back. That's why.
Anyway, Guy has had enough of these shenanigans and quits to live off his pension.
Yeah.
Storming out, he decides to tour all of the spots where he last was with Geneviève, like this cafe where he quickly sits down and downs 2 glasses of wine, then argues with the waiter who's not super impressed with this rich soldier boy with nothing but big bills cleaning out his float.
Yep.
That's a thing that I guess doesn't happen in the U.S. You wouldn't get a waiter just being like, come on, customer, you're being unreasonable.
Well, that's what I'm laughing with. That's kind of a stretch for an argument. Is that just like a trope to have him have a reason to fight with somebody? Because I just can't imagine that that's like
I
a
guess. I mean,
legitimate.
I guess.
I mean, of all the Universal stuff happening, that one is the least accessible moment. Oh, we've all been there. We try to pay with big bills and we get in a fight with the guy. It happens all the time.
I've just told you, here's a big bill. You keep the rest of it. And the guy's like, what? Hey, now.
Yeah. How dare you?
Yeah. I didn't get that at first. And second viewing, I was like, maybe he's upset because he needs to use all his change to, or maybe he's just like, you fucking rich boy. In which case, it's totally on him. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of...
I think they're both having a bad day is what I think is happening.
They're both having a bad day. His next stop is the umbrella shop, where the new owner is turning it into a laundromat. He goes into the laundromat, where the people hauling the machines are not terribly impressed with why he's there. He's then off to a bar, where I don't think they were with Geneviève, unless it's the same red room. And it is. This time, there's a bunch of sailors hanging out here, and a bunch of women wearing very little. Mm-hmm. And he declines the first lady who approaches him, and the second one convinces him to enjoy their evening together with her at the hotel next door.
Only to find... The next morning.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name?
Oh, yeah. The next morning, he leaves and goes home where Madeleine informs him
No. You missed something.
Did I miss something? What did I miss?
When he wakes up with that woman of the night.
Oh, Jenny.
And she was, Jenny for Geneviève. She has the same name as the person he's trying to escape.
Oh, and she's all like, you can call me Geneviève if you want. And he's like, cool, no, not doing that. Later.
Yep. So like, no matter what he does, but it's almost like, but it is funny because the crowd, they're definitely in the same place, but the crowd is different.
But also the lighting is different.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still, I mean, I'm assuming there aren't a lot of, but the bar is in the same place. It's the same color walls. It's just places change.
I think maybe the places changed.
They're a port town.
But also, the lighting is super daylight right now, whereas in the previous one, it was a very warm color temperature. And this one is a very cool color temperature. And I think that difference makes it look sort of almost clinical, sterile. You can see the pores on this young sailor's face.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, everything is changing around him, even the old places, The place he went to with Geneviève to get that drink at the gas station, the train station, his last drink, that place is, he's getting a fight there. He goes to this place. It's not as romantic as it used to be. He picks up a girl and falls into the debauchery of the evening, only to find she is also named this, so it's just kind of, everything is changing and nothing is good anymore. And you're just pretty unlucky.
Change. Mm-hmm. The next morning.
And I don't really like it. And he's struggling, but I don't really like him very much right now. I think he's kind of cruel and, he's moody and I get why, but they've not sanitized who the character is or the humanity of his suffering for sure.
He's a big old mope right now, and they're not hiding it. They're saying, sometimes good people turn into mopes when unreasonable stuff happens to them.
Yep.
And from his perspective, it's pretty unreasonable because we just saw Geneviève's whole deal from her perspective going, well, what are my options here exactly? And then Guy's idea is, I came home expecting that I would have like my fiance and kid waiting for me, and instead I have exactly not that. And they're nowhere to be found, and I don't know whether I'm going to ever see my kid now. Ah!
And the places that made me happy don't make me happy anymore.
And the people who made me happy are no longer here. This is awful. And I don't think it's unreasonable for him to be this upset, though he's taken it out on himself in a big way, and I feel sort of sorry for him there. Mm-hmm. Also, that waiter he yelled at, I don't think he needed to be in that fight.
No.
The next morning...
Tip your waiter, people. Tip your waiter.
It depends where you are. In the States, yeah. Totally.
I know. You're ruining my cliche joke, but that's fine.
That's fine. Well, sometimes, you just gotta... your American tropes just won't work here.
That's fair. I waited tables until I moved to Europe and was like, they don't make any money here. I'm over it. Which was a good thing, because I would have kept doing it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I know.
So the next morning, he leaves and goes home, where Madeleine informs him that Elise died last night while he was boinking.
Because of course.
Yep. Feelings. So cut to the funeral, where only he and Madeleine are in attendance. And there's a lot of people just not going to church. You'd expect, like, did nobody else know Elise? Did she not go to church? And people were like, oh, I knew her. She made the cookies on Sundays. It was awful to lose her. Like, nobody?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. A lot of the religious stuff is, they didn't pay for any extras in those scenes, it's for sure.
Yeah. No. They paid all of the extras to be in the Mardi Gras.
Yeah, that was it. Budget blown.
Uh-huh.
They already used them all, getting that, shot where the camera's obviously stationary and you can tell people are walking by with cherry blossom branches to look like the camera's moving, but you can tell it's not.
I don't hate it. It was a good shot.
No, I like it, but it was like, I mean, it was,
it's very,
but it was a little, it was hyper real because you could see like what it was. It was, I don't know, I thought it was funny. It makes me laugh every time.
For real. It's wonderful. Cut to the next morning, and Madeleine is leaving, except that Guy does not want her to leave because otherwise he will be alone. And Madeleine says pretty much what you said, which is, this guy's a dick. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be around this guy. He's a dick. I smoldered over this. Look at this.
Don't even blame her. She's not stupid, which is great.
No, she's pretty clear on what she wants, and it's not this like mopey lump of a man who doesn't do anything except live off his army pension.
Yep.
I don't know what kind of rank he had, but like a year and a half is what kind of pension you getting?
Yeah. Well, if you're injured, I think you get maybe disability.
It occurs to me I know nothing about this, so probably shouldn't comment. Never mind.
Yeah, no, that one. I mean, when you get disability, it can take care of you. People can live on that.
So he's got a thing in a leg, which is like the most minimal disability that he can claim, I guess, because again, they didn't want to have to pay for makeup.
Right.
Won't someone think of the budget?
We can't even afford extras for the church scenes.
We tried. They were all very expensive for some reason.
A bit ironic. The church is about giving, and yet no one was willing to do it.
Cut to Guy in a suit, and also he's shaved now, because you see in the previous scene, his argument was, it's okay, baby, I'll change.
That just comes down to the aesthetics.
And then now it's like, no, actually, though, he's changed now. He's back to his old self, kinda. He's sold the flat, I guess, that Elise left to him. I should mention Elise left everything to him in a previous scene. Because now he's got money, and they sold everything that Elise had, and they got the money, and he's bought a popular brand of petrol station.
And that petrol station you will also see in a dream sequence in La La Land. Just look for it. It's in the background.
So it sounds like I don't even need to watch La La Land now. I'm like, well, I've seen this now.
No. I'm telling you,
the original now.
I'm ruining the Easter eggs for you.
Please.
That's all.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. Here's what I'm laying the groundwork for. When you finally watch La La Land, maybe you will find other things, and we can just shorthand the conversation because you know that I know about those, but maybe you'll catch the other ones.
Thank you.
I'm making our next conversation more efficient.
Efficiency is what we're all about here on the program. We're an efficient program. That's what we're trying to be. So he's in a suit. He's sold the thing. He runs down the street to meet Madeleine, who just so happens to be so orange.
I was going to say, is this the scene of the Orange Cafe?
This, God, bright, it's so orange.
Deep orange. Yeah. Yeah, all of a sudden she is vibrant colors, which she really wasn't before, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
She was kind of the muted stuff that was happening, but now
browns and navy
she's
blues.
Vibrant.
Also, it turns out that he's super happy, and she's not unhappy, I guess. Great, let's get married.
Yeah. Yep.
Except that she has some misgivings about him still being in love with Geneviève, except that actually it's fine because he's totally moved on and wants to build a life together. I mean, who even is that person who took his kid from... He's not bitter at all!
Yep, nope, totally different. But yeah, they do give her a good dramatic, like, side swooping face sigh looking off into the concrete sidewalk a little bit.
Yep, and she caresses his hand for a while because he's got to sing for a while.
Yeah.
This is the only part where I was like, they needed to either make this shorter or have her do something else during it.
Yeah.
Cut to the petrol station in winter, suddenly a year ago, in the present, 1963, and Madeleine is setting up a Christmas tree. She got shorter hair now, and she and Guy share a brief, intimate moment while their son is in the background. banging the heck out of an oil can with a spoon while wearing another culture's holy symbol as a costume. 1960s.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also how, like, every time you have a kid anywhere, they're going to just be doing their own thing.
Well, but I mean, you come down to, but like, with him wearing the Native American, he's wearing a Native American headdress, right?
Yep, that's the one. But it's like brightly rainbow colored. So it's like two different cultures, both Native American and gay Native American. And
they were called third people.
Sorry?
They were called third people that were of non-genders in Native American tribes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I shall correct my language from now on. Thank you for informing me.
It's called like third nation or third. There's some special term for it because they didn't see gender the same way. But even still, it was always very funny to me because, of that time period, Westerns were obviously really, really popular entertainment. I mean, I grew up with my dad watching them, but they were obviously the ones made from like the 50s and 60s. The spaghetti Westerns and stuff were happening, the cheaper ones that were made over in Italy. Ones. Right, exactly. So,
your introduction to Italian cinema.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things though was when I first went to Paris, I've been living in London for a while, but there's not a lot of Mexican food. And by not a lot, there was like 3 Mexican food restaurants in London, period.
Probably because there's not as many Mexicans in London as there are in Texas.
There are more Japanese restaurants in London than McDonald's, which I think is valued. Like that's honorable distinction for sure. But just random notification. But so anyway, I did miss Mexican food. And so when I used to stay in, Porto Clichy, which I'm sure don't make fun of my accent.
No, that's fine.
But they had the chain of Mexican food restaurants in Paris, but they're called, Indiana, which was always weird because Indiana is not a Mexican food place. Like it's like someone got an idea and took like this Native American word and American word and like blended and misunderstood the cultures. I mean, first off, the Mexican food, I was all excited to have Mexican food. It was absolutely terrible. As any culture tries to interpret the food from your country, it's never what you need, right? But you do it anyway. But yeah, I just always laughed. I'm like, y'all, they called their Mexican restaurant Indiana. And like, it's just hysterical because that's Midwestern corn.
It's
like way far from Mexico.
I have been to curry houses and Indian restaurants with people from India, and frequently they cannot stop laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. And my boyfriend was when I lived there was half Burmese, half Italian, but like Indian. And so we would go to places, but yeah, his father would, you have to, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, the whole point is thing. Indiana,
Mexican
Indiana
food.
is like Indiana is a 2 days drive from Mexico. And so I just always laughed at the French calling it that. So to me, it showed how pervasive Western culture was. It wasn't just translating to English speaking countries. Like it obviously was a thing. So that's why it made sense for me to see this little kid in that time period with like his Native American. I'm like, well, yeah, Westerns were popular.
This reminds me that this podcast is brought to you by Indiana. Indiana, the home of Mexican food, apparently.
In Paris, for sure.
Cut to winter at the petrol station. They're here and they're having a nice time, and looks like they've built themselves a legitimately lovely marriage and a happy, prosperous life. And man, that's so good. I love to see happy people in the movies. And Madeleine is taking...
And a pristine...
Sorry?
I said in a pristine, elegant gas station.
Yeah. You know how pristine and elegant gas stations can be.
Uh-huh.
Madeleine is taking their son to go window shopping for Christmas toys as a car arrives for petrol.
What's their son's name?
Oh, he's Francois.
Mm-hmm.
What were they going to name their kid again? Francois?
That's it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure those things are not related.
Right?
I'm certain those things aren't related, because if movies have taught me anything, it's that you shouldn't think too hard.
Right.
You shouldn't think too hard. When's the next explosion happening? This movie has no explosions? Well, we're at the petrol station. There's still hope.
Yeah, exactly. It could happen.
And who's in this car but, drumroll, Geneviève and her daughter, Françoise. I do like how the little girl sees her mom toot the car horn and goes, "Ha!" and toots the car horn.
I don't like how she leaves her daughter alone in the car and goes into the gas station to hang out.
I'm sure she's
As a mom,
fine.
I'm like, why would you do that?
1950s.
Well, and that is the point, because I have memories of being in the car by myself in the parking lot in the 80s. My mom went to go get groceries. So,
1958. It was a different time.
Yeah, and in a small town, and she knew everybody there, supposedly, and all that kind of stuff.
Like,
but yeah.
she knows her own town. She's from Cherbourg. She's like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, but my argument is they're getting the gas, right? So the car is off. So her child is in there in a car that is turned off in a snowstorm. That's got to be cold. That's what I'm saying.
She's caught a coat. I don't know. She's fine. I'm sure she's fine.
This is mom's filter, obviously.
I know it's mom filter, and I'm telling you, 1958, people were a lot more Darwinian about their kids. They were like, well, if she freezes to death, it means that she wasn't strong enough to mother good, strong grandchildren.
It's gonna give her a good Gallic spirit. She can just suffer and be fine.
Yeah, suffering is part of life. She'll learn.
Oh. You sound like, is it Elise? Aunt Elise?
Ma tante Elise, yeah. Life is suffering. Anyways, hand me my meds. I'm making fun of her a lot, but I actually really dig Aunt Elise. She's kind of great. She's so sweet.
Oh, she's sweet.
Like, I'm perfectly aware I'm at the end of my life. So, like, if we could avoid fighting forever, that would be wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
So, so he's suddenly confronted with the ghost of Christmas past here. And she is not smiling very much. They briefly make some small talk, and how have you been? I've not been back to. This scene is not about dialogue. They're saying stuff, but none of it matters. It's all glances and subtext, and the text is not important in the least. The actual words they use and the topics discussed, who cares?
Yeah.
Except for when Geneviève asks him whether he wants to meet his daughter. He does not.
Yeah.
Or at least he doesn't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree.
Yeah, that's a really complex thing, because probably this is your chance. It'll never happen again. But will that torture you and make it worse?
You know what?
I mean,
I don't think I would want to. I don't think I would want to. I think I would be saying, you left, man. You took this from me, and what am I going to do? Take it back? There's nothing that's going to happen after this.
Yeah, but see, I'm the person who's kind of going, if this is my one chance and I don't take it, will I regret missing this chance forever if this was my only chance?
To do what? Say hello to a kid who says, I like fire engines, and then you're done?
Yeah, I don't know. Just a picture. I don't know. And this moment, all of a sudden, well, we'll have to watch.
We're very much at the end.
Well, no, I know it is the end, but what I'm saying is there's definitely a fantasy sequence in La La Land. And so, like, in my head.
I see.
No, not quite the same. No.
Do they do the crane shot out from the gas station?
It's not like a straight parallel that way at all. But, it's the idea that's represented of the opportunity to think about what could have been. The ghost
thing. Of what could have been is, I think, what she is to Guy. This isn't a real thing. This isn't life. This isn't something that's going to continue. It's not her coming back and saying, I would like you to be part of our daughter's life. It's her saying, I'm here by accident.
She didn't realize.
But out of politeness, I should offer.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Your decision.
And, and how conveniently they set it up to where, like, his wife and his son are gone. And so it sets up the moment for it. But yeah, I mean, you're right. That scene is not about the dialogue. There's no overt acknowledgement
of anything,
and no blame being placed. Nothing of it. It's just all about tension. It is that classic French tension, nuance, just a raw.
And it took us an hour and 20 minutes to get here, and the entire build-up was for this mostly quiet moment, and I love it.
Yeah, and this is where the high school boys stand up in the seats and scream at the film and get accusatory and point fingers and just rage about what's happened. And I'm like, that's right.
Interesting.
I got you invested. Yeah,
what's
it blows
interesting
my
to me
mind.
is which part are in your experience, are the American teenager boys saying he absolutely should see his daughter? Is that what it is?
No, they're angry at her. She finally shows back up and they can scream at her for what she did. They're angry and they're like, how dare you? And how, they're angry at her
He's like resigned to it.
Yeah.
So they're like angry on his behalf.
He's resigned. He's moved on. But, he's also had years.
I guess that's right, yeah.
Anybody processing this film, I mean, that's one of the things that I always talk about stories and films and books. I'm like, this is like, simulations. They create things, they play and get emotional hooks with you. And the point is, we watch these stories because we learn these lessons without suffering the consequences of them when bad decisions are made. It's like by getting us emotionally invested, we create a sense of empathy with the characters. So we feel their emotions, which teach us the morals of our society and what's right and what's wrong. And so that's why they talk about like fiction. Reading fiction or engaging with fiction helps with your social intelligence because it helps you understand other people. I mean, I've got an American teenage boy watching a French film from the 1960s, totally sung, and they are invested in these people because the emotions are relatable and, they want justice. They're still fresh off the wound of what she did. And so when she's back on the screen, there's a place to dump that anger and anguish, which he has already gone through. But, it's just proving,
the magic
of storytelling.
2 glasses of wine and at least one prostitute into his loneliness by the time he got better.
Yeah. Yeah, and then his aunt died. So, I mean, it was just like, let's go ahead and get him to rock bottom so he can find a reason to pick himself back up, So, yeah, I mean, the film, I think, is visually beautiful, unlike anything else I've seen. Even when La La Land plays with color, it's on a much more muted scale, but you can see the references to it for sure. But you rarely see color treated that way in films. You've talked about how the dialogue is
super
these longer
intricate.
bits. Everything
super
is done
intricate.
right.
If I may, though, we only have one bit of thing that still happens in the movie before we wrap it up. She gets in the car and leaves without paying. At no point does she pay. At no point does she get out her wallet and go, here's for the gas.
But that's kind of like the point of the whole movie, right? Like, what does she pay for, considering what she's done, when you think about it? I never noticed it before.
She should probably pay for the gas she bought.
Well, she should definitely, for sure. I mean, you're definitely right about that, but there's no, like, repercussions for... I mean, you understand the choices she had to make.
Oh, no, well, here...
And it's not like they're not both happy, for sure.
Oh,
but,
I understand. Everybody had good reason to do everything at all
thing.
times, and that's why it's hard to hate anybody in the film. Like, I don't hate Geneviève. She had to do what she had to do, and this is why I'm really surprised to hear that there's a common reaction, which is, nah, fuck this lady.
Yeah, no, but that's what it is. They're all like, she wasn't low, because they have the luxury of knowing he came back and he wanted that, right?
I guess that's right. Yeah, they sort of jumped to the part that the audience knows and not the part that the characters know.
Right, exactly. So
I feel also, coming back to your point about I think most stories are ultimately morality plays, at least the simpler ones. Mm-hmm. And then you get a story like this, which is not straightforwardly, this is what's right, and the good people believe this, and this is what's wrong, and the bad people believe that. Don't believe that. Believe this instead. Look how good everything. Instead, it's everybody had good reason to do everything that they were doing. It still ended up fine, I guess. Nobody got ideally what they wanted, except arguably Madeleine, who got she got a good deal out of it. I guess Roland sort of got what he wanted. I don't know. It's hard to get a read on him. I guess he says he wants it and then he gets it, so he's pretty happy. Mum, she got what she wanted, but the two people involved in the relationship, they're like, I guess that's fine.
They've made the most of their second choices, and there's always going to be a sense of, but I wouldn't even argue that. I mean, you're right that a lot of stories are morale. A lot of, and I think so. And you obviously want that for him because, he's who you're rooting for because he was wronged, right? So
yeah. I guess for him, it's a different journey. He was wronged, and he's now made a nice life for himself, so it's easy to be like, come on, fuck that lady. Whereas her journey is she had to give him up in order to secure her own life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're
and the life of her child.
We're talking life and death, right? 1958, there's not exactly a welfare state in France.
Yeah. And I mean, and all the cliches of, an unmarried pregnant woman and all those cultural things that go with that and how much harder it would be. But like, I mean, and you're right, it's not a straightforward morality play, but it is almost, but I mean, it's still, the idea of what's right and wrong isn't there, but it's the lesson of this can happen to you and you can still find happiness. And yes, there may always be like a tinge of what if, but that's a common thing.
Yeah,
and people survive it, and it's life. So it gets back to kind of, what is it she says, to be sad is to be happy, or however she paraphrased it, and so.
I now wish I'd written that down, but I don't have it written down.
All of a sudden I'm thinking, man, I want to find out exactly what nuanced, funny thing she says, because that kind of encapsulates the ending, right? There's a sadness to it, but everything's okay anyway.
Yeah, well, this is, I think, also the French outlook on life, which is like, everything sucks, but whatever. Have you seen the opera?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I just love stories that don't have American endings. I really love foreign films. I really love them for that.
There were so many parts in this film that could have been a Disney. They could have absolutely gone, if they had not here. So that we should wrap up then in the actual wrapping up segment. That was good. That was a good movie. That was a good movie. I normally don't like musicals. This felt like an opera. I don't normally like opera, but this was really good. Lots of the leitmotif stuff, but not... I didn't really get any big memorable musical numbers, which actually I appreciated. It felt like a sort of meander. Mm-hmm. It is wonderful.
And there isn't really like a shift in the pace of the music either. There's not like super fast and super slow. It's just kind of, you're right, like a meandering pace to all the music,
But also the motifs were real subtly blended in a lot of places. Not if you're doing leitmotifs the lazy way, it's Darth Vader shows up on the screen, dum bum 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 bum, and that's great. Mm-hmm. We like it. What you want is for then later, when you're at a scene where you're looking at Yoda and he looks at the camera and you go bum 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 bum. That's what the leitmotif is for. It's, oh no, Yoda might be evil. Doesn't actually happen as far as I know. But in this film, it's this person has their own leitmotif playing, and also there's another character's and counterpoint going along with it, indicating that they are thinking about that other person, or that as the audience, we ought to be thinking about that other person, and that is glorious. Mm-hmm. That is something you cannot do in a non-musical medium, and I am happy to see that here, because it's finally made the point for me of like, okay, musical's good. I understand why you blend the story and the music now, because you can't do that without this.
And it captures emotion and things like that, for sure, in a different way that isn't just relying on... because what's funny is like the color is very vibrant, right? But this film is not like full of...
Your main notes are the colors and my main notes are the music.
Well, no, but I was going to say, but the tone of the film is not like a joyous, vibrant film, right? Mm. So it was like this juxtaposition.
In parts, it absolutely is.
Right, but what I want to argue is rarely do you see the colors match the mood, right?
Yes,
it was its own separate thing. It was its own separate thing, its own separate style stuff. I mean, and we all know that you know that I'm a crazy music junkie, and so.
Well, you like that one music. And then the surrounding music around that music.
Well, no, I just mean music in general. So,
no, of course, also that. I was mostly making don't you have a tattoo of David Bowie's face on your own face?
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier when I'm trying to like go pick up the royalty checks. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The fact that after the first two parts of the movie, we don't really see Genevieve again at all until a single short scene at the end is kind of genius.
Yeah, because it's like her point of view of what's happening, and then the after stuff is all through his eyes, I mean, they don't even repeat the same experience, it's not like, well, here's what was happening in this time period to her, now let's see what was happening to him.
Which is a perfectly fine way to structure a thing, but I think it would have weakened it here, because all that was happening to him is being in the army, and then he gets home and he's confused as to why his fiancée is not there. Mm-hmm.
And you see kind of the hard emotional journey happening to her in the beginning, and then you see the hard emotional journey for him, which is the after effects of it all, So, I mean, it is a very complimentary setup structure for sure.
And the switch to Guy's point of view, who is dealing with her decisions badly, to say the least. At first, Then he manages to move on and build a life for himself. That's quite the journey he goes through in not even one act of a story.
And it's also interesting to think about. It's quite clear that after she left, she never made any efforts to reach out to him and give him updates. Like, she was like, and that's an interesting place for her to be because, I didn't really like him as he was suffering in the end. But I never blamed her for what she was going through and what she did, what she chose. But then afterwards, I am kind of mad at her because it's not like her kid, it's almost like her kid probably doesn't know that that's not her father. I mean, that's quite clearly what's happening,
and probably
right?
won't.
Yeah. This is just another child being raised and you will have no part in it. And I don't owe you anything, despite the fact he really didn't do anything wrong.
It would have been very easy to stick with one or the other throughout and be the American movie and be like, look, this person was wronged and therefore look at the morality play. And instead they do exactly not that because they're interested in what is the human experience of this kind of situation. It's the situation
which might not be
movie.
happening to you, but it's not an experience people can't imagine, So
maybe that's also a cultural difference between the French and the Americans, at least in movies. I really do think that an American director would have stuck with one perspective to tell a much more straightforward love story where love conquers all. I really do think that. I can't think of an American director who would be happy with this sort of like, it's probably
passing
fine.
the baton, shutting it down, yeah.
Yeah, instead it's like refreshingly Gallic. The ending is happy, but also and then the audience might have expected or hoped something different, but we also get to be like, I guess they're fine. Guy is Madeleine's first choice, but she's not really his first choice, but he's making the best out of it. And he does seem to love her, which is great.
Yeah, they seem to genuinely have some kind of affection and a good life and happiness in the end, which, you want him to be okay because he was dealt a pretty rough hand,
By Geneviève, who in a lesser movie would have been the villain, but in this movie is not a villain at all. She's a main character, and also we want the best for her. So can we have the best for both of them? Well, not really, because, there was a war and stuff happened, and all right.
Yeah, they're both just victims of their circumstances and cultures. And
I suppose so.
That's just it, really. But it's a beautifully done film, and I think it's very sensitive, and it picks up on a lot of nuanced kind of, internal struggles. And so I love films that are heavily stylized, as you can tell as I keep harping on them, right? I love when you blend like high art choices with like really interesting human stories, because you don't often get those things elevated, which that's my note for watching Moonlight. They took content that is normally portrayed one way in cinema, for a certain audience, and then they made it arty for the other audience that would probably never watch a film about a African-American male in the ghetto. And so by them making it this arty film, all of a sudden you're bridging these two cultures and you're making the high art crowd have empathy with an experience that's not in the kind of stuff they would traditionally pick up. And so I just think that storytelling can be so powerful when you find a way to kind of blend two disconsonant things and really, again, I was teaching at a school with 97% free and reduced lunch, full of, a lot of kids whose parents were not born in America, and, everybody could connect to the story. Yeah. And yet that human suffering, people can all connect to it. And so, you get the cathartic thing from going on journeys in films like this, but it's also artistically done, which makes it more joyful for me. I don't know. I just adore this film, and no one has ever seen it that I know. And when I did watch La La Land,
I love that you have gone through an elegant analysis of this film, which you finished with, I don't know. I feel like that's rather underselling it. I think you know exactly.
Well, and I think it comes down to, I think I was trying to say I don't know anybody else who's really seen it, and I just feel like it's such a rare combination of things you don't see, especially in a lot of American films. So I love that that's why it was part of the inspiration for La La Land, because I felt like it kind of shone some light on this piece that clearly had some international appeal when it came out, but is kind of this forgotten, I feel like this forgotten jewel, because you're right, when you mentioned it, people who put it on your radar were other film nerds,
Oh yeah, absolute
right?
film nerds. I love my guys. They're great.
So, you know, so yeah, I don't think I would ever call it pop culture, but I think it's a very exciting piece to have experienced.
And
So,
again, I'm just imagining a movie made by an American where Guy gets back from war and he resolves to scour Paris looking for his lost love and then finds her
yeah,
and they realize that they are in love and then Disney ending.
right. And then they have to figure out how to unravel what they've done.
Oh yeah.
Just as a little quick side note, well, I was told this by my friend who was a director, but there's only been one time where you've got a French film that was inspired by an American film to where the French adapted it from the American story.
Oh yeah.
And that's the beat. It's the film called, I don't know it in French, but it translates to The Beat That My Heart Skipped.
Huh.
And it came out about 15 years ago, but it was an American story first. And the French people liked it so much that they were able to interpret it for themselves. And it's a really good movie as well.
Neat. I'll have to add it to the list.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, I love talking about stories like this because you helped me realize things that I hadn't realized. And like you found things that I had missed, but also talking to people about these things. That's what builds commonality, right? This is like the English teacher and me getting all geeky about it.
Oh, for sure. I think stories matter a lot more than a lot of other stuff, and a lot more than we give them credit for, because they do act as sort of cultural third things. Mm-hmm. Third things are the way that we relate to one another. It's the way that we communicate when we don't know people that well, which is most people most of the time.
This is a delightful project, and I'm really glad you're doing podcasts like this. It's really fun.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for being on the show. I don't suppose you have any of your own projects to plug, or maybe something of somebody else's that you'd like to plug?
I mean, my daughter's selling Girl Scout cookies, but that's it.
You're right. I ordered some from across the Atlantic, not realizing that shipping would be 6 times the cost of the cookies.
Yeah. God bless you.
I promise to order cookies if the shipping gets less expensive again.
Well, they're all doing it online and they're shipping them directly from there. So I don't even know. But, yeah, that's the only thing that I have worth pitching. Cause at this point, you know, I mean, we're all just treading water right now with this coronavirus stuff happening. So,
suppose that's right. Welcome to current year where that's happening.
That's our timestamp. I'm now at the point where I'm traumatized when I watch things in their crowds. I'm like, why are they in a crowd? I'm like, oh, because it was.
Oh, I tried so hard not to bring that up every time I saw people doing anything closer than 2 meters apart in this movie, because I had to go, wait, hang on, brain. No. Past. Yeah. This was the before times.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's made me nervous about scenes that should not be causing me any distress at all, because I'm like, why are the crowds? Oh, wait a minute.
So that's the episode, unless you have anything else to close out with.
Nope, but thank you so much for the delightful opportunity to like really deep dive and nerd out about a film that I think is an exceptional piece of art.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you were here. I hope we'll get to work together again soon. For all of you listening, if you'd like to support the show, then you can do that at patreon.com/oneforpaul, or just search One for Paul Patreon and you'll find it. You can support me for as little as £1 a month. It would really go a long way. That first little bit always is the most difficult to get, and I do understand that it's tough for everybody right now. If you can't, honestly, don't worry about it. I put this out for free for a reason. I want people to listen. I want you to listen. Please keep listening. And whenever you're in a position to throw me a couple of bucks, I would love that, and it would really help the show keep going. If you can't, in the meantime, then the best way to help, and actually the best way to help most of the time, is just tell people about the show. Say, hey, have you heard this guy who says things about movies? Because I've never heard that done on the internet before. Catch you later, y'all. Bye now.
Okay, bye, everyone.
You shouldn't think too hard. When's the next explosion happening?
Bees?